We are back. John Delarose here, the leading Hispanic voice in science fiction. It's been a while, guys. I've been super sick, and I apologize for the lack of content lately. But we are coming with another Comics Writers Pro Secrets. Today we have a question from Hans, and I've got it up right here, which I'm going to answer. He asks about how to assemble a team to create one's first graphic novel. And this is a great question. If you're a writer, you can either wait and hope you're going to get a call from one of these companies to make a comic for them, which is unlikely to happen, especially if you haven't had any comics before, or you can team up with some artists and to assemble a team to do things. There's several steps to creating a comic, the first of which is your script. So before you get going, you should have your script finished and have that done. You can, of course, work on concepts with an artist. When I started with Jethro, I had him draw me some concepts and things like that for the issue he was going to draw, but I did have the script finished, so it just depends. You don't necessarily have to have the script finished, but it's helpful. If you have your idea and want to get the visual elements before you actually do the script, that can be helpful too. For my novel, The Stars Entwined, I actually had Jethro draw some sketches of the aliens in there so I could envision them a little better before I actually set pen to paper for the novel. So that was something that I did there. Now, getting your team together, so how do you find somebody like a Jethro who works with you forever? This is the very tricky part about making comics, and this is the whole crux of making comics. There's two ways to go about finding an artist, and you're gonna find that it breaks down in a couple ways. One, you have a line art, so you will have to have somebody either penciling and inking themselves, or having a penciler and an inker, which for me, it depends on the project. It just depends on how much time the penciler has before I go to an inker. You'll have a colorist who will probably be a separate person. It's very rare to find somebody who's good at all three of these things. And then you'll have a letterer, which again will probably also be a separate person. Now you can magically find somebody who does all of these things. It does exist. Just know that the pricing will be accordingly, and for their time, and that all of those things take a lot of time. So the reason that it gets split up in the real world, in Marvel and DC and things like that, is because all these jobs, like, it takes 20 days to pencil a comic. So if they're going to come out with a comic a month with a full-time guy, he can't pencil and ink, otherwise he's going to be spending the next month inking his pencils, etc., and then the next month coloring. So if you can get the inker going on, issue 1 while the penciler is going on issue 2, and then the colorist going on issue 1 while the inker is going on issue 2, and the penciler is on issue 3, you can get a production chain going on. And that's actually what I've got going now. I've got several different artists and several different colorists working, so it goes, and I've got a letterer who's pretty fast. Lettering usually takes about a day or two per issue, so not too bad. And that's how you're going to do things. You're also going to need somebody who can format the comics and just make sure that your comics are formatted to the right printing size and all that. You can do that yourself. You can have somebody else do that. Some people have editors do that. I just have my editor go over the plot, structure, and dialogue, and I have a special formatting person who does the formatting for my novels and things like that. So I've got that delineated further at that point. So finding somebody to begin with can be challenging. I think it's very easy to find formatters and editors. So if you just post anywhere, you'll probably get people willing to do that for not too expensive. So if you have any robust social network involving comics or self-publishing books, you'll be able to find that pretty easily. So I'll just handle the artist for now. What I do and what I have done in the past is I have gone to a website called Digital Webbing. That's Digital Webbing. Digital Webbing has a forum on there where you can post for paid work or for collaboration work, either way, and you'll get different responses with different talent levels depending on what you post. Now they require that you put a specific dollar amount. So if you are going to pay your penciler $75 per page, which you can find a pretty good penciler for that rate, you will have to post that you're going to do that. And how many pages it is, how long the job is, when the deadline is. They're pretty anal about that. They don't want you to mess around there. You can also go to DeviantArt, or you can go to any number of art sites to try to find people like this. I've had better luck through Digital Webbing. I find that people on there are pretty motivated and interested. And then what happens is I've also found through word of mouth. So some artists are posting things, I start chatting them up and things like that. So there's two different ways to go about things. You can pay, or you can collaborate and say we're going to split the profits. Most good artists will not collaborate, so I'll get you right there. If you find somebody who is willing to collaborate, you might not get your project done. Your odds are a lot lower. I've had a few collaborations start. I give scripts out, and then they disappear before even finishing an issue half the time. I have not finished a complete successful graphic novel with a collaboration yet. However, I have 2 issues which are done with successful collaborations as of right now, with my artists Mary MacArthur and then Felsbug, which is on the Clockwork Dancer and the AI Wars, respectively. So those 2 have been working out pretty well. And Mike Abuon also was a collaborator on. Sorry, Mike, if you watch this, on Metaman Special. So I have been able to get single issues done. I have not been able to get single graphic novels done on that level. And there's a reason for that. You're collaborating. So you've got somebody who's working and you're talking like 70 pages. That's going to take somebody 3 months, a whole quarter of their year, maybe longer if they're part-time because, they can't work on it every day. That's going to happen. And that's where we go. So I think it's easier to get a project done if you're paying somebody. And so I would save up your money and just make sure you can pay somebody a rate that's fair for their deal, and you'll have a better odds at that. Now, you can find all sorts of stuff. Like I said, you can go through DeviantArt, you can go through all this. The first important thing to check for an artist is what they've done before, to be honest. If they haven't done anything before, you're gonna have to be very careful and suspect. You don't want to end up with somebody who does 8 pages of your 22-page issue or whatever, and then just pieces out. Because if that happens, those 8 pages are completely useless to you. If you paid somebody for that, you're going to lose that. So that's the first important thing, to make sure that they've got a track record. If they worked with other writers before, contact those other writers and just see if they're good with following through. If they're good at hitting deadlines, that's another thing that a lot of artists can't do. And so you want to make sure you have that in the stable. So those are important things. The next important thing, of course, is tone and the style. If you have a superhero book that's kind of lighthearted like Flying Sparks, you don't want some like overly detailed, heavy lined, inking, dark sort of art to go along with it. You want kind of a lighter, maybe anime influenced style like Jethro has, right? So depending on the tone of what you've got, you got to figure out the style you like and the style that you envision towards that. When you get artists in front of you, you will see their styles, and you'll be able to see if it can match up with your vision. Now, sometimes artists will do sketches for you. They might do one quickly as a just like demo for you. You might have to pay for that too. It just depends on the level of artist that you're getting also. That's a great way to see if the art's going to work well and mesh for you without having to do much. On the coloring side, colorists are generally very willing to do like a sample page or something like that. So that's definitely, once you get to that stage, something you'll be able to see. I tried out for Flying Sparks, and I've gone through actually in the volumes themselves. I've gone through, I think, 4 or 5 colorists at this point to get up to Levy Ramirez, who I really, really like and fits the style better than the others, I think. But I also have, I've probably gotten samples from 30, 40 to get to this state. So be prepared for a lot of work, and be prepared for really dialing it in to make the comic that you really want to make. So yeah, I've got, I like that digital webbing site, like I said, to search for artists there. You can post ads on Twitter and ask. There's a website, or there's a Facebook group, Comic Book Colorists for Hire. There's a lot of colorists in there, guys. And honestly, you can post your non-coloring things in there too. And some of the colorists do line art also, or have friends who do line art and things like that. I've gotten referrals on that level. And so it's a very useful thing. And you can also try through your friend group to get somebody like Clockwork Dancer with Mary MacArthur, which I'll be coming out with shortly. She's just in my friend group because we're both very pro-Christian people, and so she ended up being great to work with on that level. And we both have a very similar vision, and so it works out very well if you know the artists in your friend group. But digital webbing's your best spot, I think. Comic Book Colors for Hire is a great Facebook group to find people. You'll want to get your pencils done first and your inks done first. Get all that settled, before you start thinking about colorists. Because if your artist drops out because you have somebody who's not quite ready to do a full comic yet or something like that, you're going to probably have to get those pages redone because having that transition of different artists isn't going to work very well. So you won't want to start the process until you already have your book in hand, probably as far as the coloring goes. Now, this is different. If you're on your second or third book, like I know Jethro is going to be able to finish his project at this point. We're on issue number 13 of Work Together. No, we're not. We're on issue number 19 of Work Together at this point. And so, you know, I actually pay him for full issues up front now, and get him going because, you know, he's on like a cycle, just like it's a job with me at this point, so that we are continually producing comics. But I wouldn't recommend doing that for your first go ahead. If you can get the artist to be paid at the end or at the end of pencils, and then at the end of inks is a great way to do it to ensure that they finish the project. Because if they finish the pencils, you can always find an inker and then finish it off that way. If they don't finish that, but if they don't finish the pencils, you're kind of stuck. But a lot of artists won't. It just depends. And if they seem reputable and they've had work before, what I do is I test them out and I say, hey, let's do, you know, every 6 pages, I'll pay you. Usually I start with a short comic first, and don't go for a full issue. So with Jethro, I started with a 2-page cop story, which will be out on Patreon soon. And I've never released it. It's just in my hard drive. I've never done anything with it. And Jethro came through with that, and so I gave him an 8-page after that, which ended up being Hannah's story in Flying Sparks number 0, which is on Amazon now. So if you go into Amazon and go Flying Sparks issue number 0, it'll come up. And then I set him on the main project. So once I was comfortable and he had several pages under his belt, I knew he would be able to come through on it. I think with colorists, it's a little easier to mix and match. So if somebody does half the book, you say, here's the colors for the half of the book. Can you match this color palette? And it works out pretty well. You can still tell, but it's not as bad as if the penciler was somebody different. So you want to make sure that guy is your most dependable guy who you can work with long term if you want to do this long term. And I think that's it. So let me know if you have any questions down in the comments. Hit subscribe and make sure to subscribe to the Patreon. This is what keeps the content going, keeps my comics produced, and that's why we're doing this. So the more that we get the Patreon subscriptions going, the better and more comics we can produce and just deliver every single month through Patreon, which is going to be the goal. We're going to be trying to start making monthly comics from here on out. It's going to be a wild, wild year next year, and we'll see how it goes. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and I'll talk to you soon.